Everyone procrastinates. Whether it's putting off an annoying assignment, ignoring a pile of laundry, or delaying a difficult conversation, minor laziness is just a universal tax on being human. It is the brain's default setting to conserve energy. But there is a massive, terrifying difference between taking a well-deserved weekend nap and completely slipping into permanent psychological stagnation. Laziness isn't a single flat habit. It is a progressive neurological trap. Psychologists, evolutionary biologists, and behavioral scientists actually map human inactivity across 7 distinct escalating phases. Today, we're breaking down the 7 levels of human laziness. Most of you watching this video right now are likely sitting at a comfortable, highly relatable level T or level 3, but you need to pay close attention because if your daily habits cross past the threshold of level 5, escaping the loop becomes nearly impossible. Let's start at the absolute baseline. Level 1 is what we call micro-procrastination. This is the absolute baseline of human laziness, and practically 99% of the global population experiences it daily. At this level, you aren't destroying your life. You are simply delaying reality by microscopic increments. It's hitting the snooze button twice. It's sitting in your car for 10 minutes after parking, staring blankly at your steering wheel because opening the door and walking inside feels like an exhausting chore. It's opening a tab to start working, but deciding you absolutely must clear your email inbox or organize your desktop files first. From a biological standpoint, this is completely normal. Your brain is a highly efficient machine designed to avoid immediate discomfort. Why start a high-energy task right now when your current environment is perfectly warm, safe, and automated? At level 1, your executive function is still fully intact. You eventually get up, you complete your work, and you meet your deadlines. The friction is minor. However, when these micro-delays start compounding, they quietly rewire your dopamine baseline, triggering a smooth slide into level 2.
Level 2 is selective inactivity. This is the point where laziness transitions from a brief morning delay into a conscious tactical negotiation with your responsibilities. At this level, you have plenty of energy, but you are highly selective about where you spend it. You will find yourself rationalizing why non-work is actually productive. Have you ever looked at a massive project you need to finish and suddenly decided that this is the absolute perfect moment to deep clean your entire kitchen or rearrange your entire wardrobe by color gradient? That is level 2. You aren't lying on the floor staring at the ceiling. You are actively moving, but you are channeling 100% of your energy into low-stakes, low-anxiety tasks to completely avoid the one thing that actually matters. The danger of selective inactivity is that it feels incredibly justified. You tell yourself, well, I didn't study, but at least I organized my room, so today wasn't a total waste. You are weaponizing minor tasks to mask your fear of failure or cognitive strain. You are still a fully functioning member of society, but you are slowly teaching your brain that avoiding friction yields immediate comfort. And once that lesson sets in, the friction required to do real work becomes heavier, pushing you down into the warm, numbing embrace of level 3.
Level 3 is passive consumption. This is the official entry point into the slippery slope phase of human laziness. At this stage, productivity doesn't just get redirected, it completely grinds to a halt. This is the zone of the infinite scroll and the accidental binge watch. You sat down on a Friday evening intending to watch just one episode of a show or browse social media for 15 minutes. Suddenly you blink, the sun is coming up on Saturday morning, you are surrounded by empty wrappers, and your screen is asking, are you still watching? At level 3, your brain has entered a state of pure passive consumption. You aren't gaming, which requires active hand-eye coordination. You aren't cleaning, which requires movement. You are simply acting as an open receptacle for cheap, effortless digital dopamine. The psychological phenomenon here is called action paralysis. The longer you sit in the hyper-comfort of passive entertainment, the higher the invisible wall becomes to stand up and do literally anything else. Getting off the couch to cook a meal feels like climbing Mount Everest. Most people can pull themselves out of level 3 when Monday morning arrives or when an emergency forces them to move, but if you lose the ability to break this paralysis, your body transitions from mental avoidance into actual physical decay.
Level 4 is physical lethargy. This is where laziness stops being a mental state and starts manifesting as physical gravity. The weight of your own body feels twice as heavy as it did before. At level 4, basic biological maintenance becomes too much work. You are starving, but instead of walking to the kitchen to boil pasta, you lie on the floor for 2 hours waiting for the hunger to subside. When you finally break, you don't cook. You spend money you shouldn't spend to order food delivery directly to your door. Basic household chores don't just get delayed. They pile up until your environment begins to actively change. The sink fills with dishes, the trash can overflows, your clothes stay in a messy heap on the floor. Your brain's reward center is now deeply compromised. It has learned that it can receive food, entertainment, and comfort with absolutely zero physical exertion. Let's do a quick reality check right here in the middle of the spectrum. Be honest with yourself. Have you ever let your immediate environment get this bad? Have you ever lived out of a delivery bag because the kitchen felt miles away? Comment your highest level below before we enter the final irreversible stages of the spectrum. Because past this point, laziness ceases to be a bad habit and becomes a full-blown existential crisis.
Level 5 is the isolation loop. This is the critical turning point. At levels 1 through 4, your laziness is largely a private issue, but at level 5, your inactivity begins to aggressively tear down your social structure, your relationships, and your external commitments. At this stage, the friction of interacting with the outside world feels utterly overwhelming. You begin actively canceling plans with friends, ghosting important text messages, and missing family events, simply because the social energy required to put on shoes, leave the house, and hold a conversation feels like an impossible burden. The comfort of your isolated bubble becomes an addiction. You create an elaborate web of lies and excuses to protect your inactivity. I'm
sick, I'm working late, something came up, but in reality, you were just sitting in the exact same spot, watching the exact same screen, feeling a deep, compounding sense of guilt. This is a dangerous psychological loop. The more you isolate yourself out of laziness, the more alienated you feel from your peers. And the more alienated you feel, the more terrifying the outside world becomes, forcing you deeper into your cocoon. You are no longer resting, you are hiding. And when you hide from life long enough, your environment begins to decay around you, ushering in the dark reality of level 6.
Level 6 is complete stagnation. We have now officially entered the danger zone. This is no longer a temporary phase or a lazy weekend. This is a permanent lifestyle of absolute surrender to your immediate environment. At level 6, a person has completely stopped fighting the decay. Responsibilities are no longer just delayed, they are abandoned. Bills go completely unpaid, emails pile up into the thousands, and career or academic goals are entirely dropped. The individual lives in a state of chronic executive dysfunction, where the chaos of their physical surroundings perfectly mirrors the chaos of their mind. Notice the visual cues here. The screens are dead. The dopamine receptors are so completely burnt out from months of passive consumption that nothing registers. You aren't avoiding work to do something fun, you are avoiding everything just to exist in a state of absolute motionless neutrality. Your world has shrunk down to the dimensions of a single room, and you have willingly become a prisoner of your own inertia. It is a state of living decay, and yet there is still one final layer below this, a level so extreme that it crosses out of the realm of human psychology and enters a state of literal, terrifying non-existence.
Level 7 is total apathy, otherwise known as the melt. This is the ultimate absolute extreme of the laziness spectrum. At this point, the concept of the self completely dissolves. This represents a state of total, unadulterated apathy towards survival itself. In history, we see bizarre glimpses of level 7 in the final days of hyper-decadent, collapsing empires, where elite rulers became so profoundly detached from reality and wrapped in automated luxury that they refused to move, requiring servants to physically carry them, dress them, and hand-feed them until their muscles completely atrophied and their bodies failed from pure immobility. In a modern psychological context, level 7 is the absolute severance of the link between cause and effect. The house could be actively burning down around you, and your brain would simply conclude that standing up requires far too much effort, choosing instead to close its eyes and let the smoke take over. It is the total, complete surrender of human agency to gravity and entropy. You are no longer an active participant in the universe. You are just organic matter waiting to be reclaimed by the dust. The terrifying reality of this spectrum is that nobody wakes up and decides to jump straight to level 7. It is a slow, silent, invisible gravity. It begins with a single snooze button. It builds with an extra hour of video games. It solidifies when you choose a food delivery app over walking outside. Every single time you choose the path of zero friction, you take one micro step to the right of this grid. The next time you feel the urge to delay a critical task, ask yourself, which level am I actively building right now? Turn off the infinite scroll, step away from the screen, and go move. See you there.